How are you guys? So I added a few more gadgets to the space to give it a little more ambiance. These pieces are actually like some from what I had when this space was fully curated. As I had mentioned a few videos ago, like right after the pandemic, I made this patio balcony off our office, and it has like a little oasis. And my son was like 2 years old, and then as he got older and wanted to be more downstairs, we moved all the furniture. So this balcony is so like, I love it so much, but admittedly we don't use it as much now, you know. And I had bought all these like cute little things to make it an oasis, and it was wonderful what I did with it. I was really proud of it. And we sort of like repurposed them all. So I kind of put together a little something now just to kind of give it a little nod. I got some cards in front of me, and I picked up a new deck. I picked up 2 new decks today, which is really fun because I felt called to add some to my collection, and I already have quite the collection. I mean, it's not huge, but it's like I have at least 10 decks. So I really like the reinterpretations of the Rider-Waite tarot are my favorites, and I saw this one today. I have to look up who Michelle Knight is, because it's called the Waite tarot deck, and the imagery is just beautiful, and it's gold foiled. So I'm really excited about that. And then I picked up this one, which Yasmin Boland is an astrologer, and I really loved this. Felt like an alternative to the really popular Rebecca Campbell decks. Just the light of it and the intuitive kind of energy of it. So I don't think I'm ready to pull from them just yet, because I have to sort of like anoint the cards, but the imagery is very clear and strong, I would say, in this deck. But I thought I would kind of like have them here as I chat with you guys about some things. Slow it down. It's the first card that I like pulled here, and this just feels very relevant for a message for myself, maybe for you too as you're listening to this, but I feel like that resonates so much with me right now, because I'm just in a slowing down process, which is honestly such a big deal for me because I move so fast in things, and it's like I have this fire constantly out of me, like underneath me, and it's just, it has a lot of trouble not saying yes to everything, and the direction of which sometimes it's if you know a little bit about astrology, it's an intercepted in Capricorn. My Mars is intercepted in Capricorn, so Capricorn is intercepted in my first house in astrology, and it has a really hard time saying no, and it also has a really hard time just knowing how to show up directionally. And Mars in Capricorn is like very strong. It's known as exalted, and that's a really good thing. But I find in the interception, you really see the blind spots of that positioning, and how I find my kids have really prompted me, particularly at the arrival of my daughter, who's now like 15 months, to really slow down and focus. And it's been the ultimate surrender, because it's like really uncomfortable when you're just so used to going. So first impressions of this deck are, the cards are a little bit wide, which I don't love, but I do love the imagery, and I love the clarity of it, and I think it'll be a nice alternative to this, which is my astrology deck by the Numinous, and I use this deck the most. I absolutely love it. So yeah, this will be a nice one too, you know, just to kind of tune in to some messages during readings and stuff. And obviously it's nice to have a planetary complement to the tarot card when you're also working in the guise of like astrology and energy readings. So love that. So here we are. What is happening here? Self-regulation, the moon in Taurus. That's really pretty. Exalted moon too, you know. It's so beautiful. Isn't that so powerful? Look at that. And then the falling moon, so. The moon in Capricorn is in fall. Actually, it might be in detriment, and then the moon in Taurus is exalted, so the moon in Scorpio is in fall. Yeah. So, sorry. Beautiful though. First impressions. This one feels good. I did really want to jump on here and chat about something that's been sort of percolating lately. I think I mentioned it. A part of it already is that in my Patreon, I'm working on like a piece that I want to write around the need to be seen. And this kind of loops back to that sort of like Capricorn moon moment, Mars moment that I was speaking to. I've been I've been doing social media for like, since it started, like when I tell you since it started. So my journey was blogging first. And if you go back and even look at like a few videos, you'll see that I posted videos that were like, at the time didn't feel so raw, but when I look back at them now, I'm like, wow, I was really, like, I did not surrender. And that's okay. It was what it was, but just showing up and the need to prove myself and the need to prove myself. And of course, like, growth presents itself in different ways, and there's different seasons and there's different phases of it. And so I'm definitely at a more progressed stage of my growth and my healing journey and my spiritual awakening, which just has connected me, I would say, more so than sounding extremely woo, has connected me very much to a sense of peace and a sense of like not having a 5-alarm fire under me to respond and react to every single thing that happens in my life. And it served me in many instances in the last 6 years. Not the least of which I can say was at the birth of my daughter. So I'm really proud of my journey. But that being said, I've been reflecting a lot on this like need to be seen. And it's penning itself in my mind first, but I'm going to be writing a piece on this. And it's really just about our obsession as a culture and as a society to just constantly put ourselves out there and get external validation for our performance. And as someone who has done blogging since 2008, and then in 2012 was like, I need to take a little bit of a break, and then 2012 onwards, I think, like, as social media really became more prominent, like Instagram particularly, all the way up until 2017, I was like, I hit the ground running with social media, and I was at the peak of like my fashion career, and I feel like it was a lot of show, like external validations, like look what I, am doing and buying, and like, it's people who knew me back then or know me, whatever, from there, are like, you were like the same person. But like when I look at pictures or content of myself back then, I'm like, God, I looked so like empty, and it just looked like such a like performance space that I was in versus now. And this performance thing is kind of complementary to this need to be seen scenario, because I really think we need to drop this performance quality to our lives. Like, I feel like we are selling ourselves out by performing for others. And one of my earlier videos, I was speaking a lot to like people pleasing and how I'm such a people pleaser and how I was trying to heal from people pleasing. And then I became like, my immediate thing after having a burnout, I was like, well, I can't stop, I can't not work, I have to. It was actually really interesting. Like I was like, I can't stop, I can't not work, like I gotta keep going, I gotta keep going, I gotta keep like proving myself, which is part of like that exalted Mars situation too. And it's just like, go, 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 go. And now I have children and I'm frustrated that the North Node card just came out, which I love that for what I'm talking about right now. But and now I'm like, oh, I can't even work properly, and I can't even like, we moved to a remote area, and I can't prioritize like my work, and it's like, staff, like you need to chill. Like your entire existence was like proving yourself, go, 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 go. Like you didn't even take a break and like calculate a beat after you had your burnout. You still felt the need to show up and talk about where you were at, exploring this healing and becoming that person. And part of it is where social media was at that point versus where it's at now. And another part of it was very like ego-based. It was just very much like who I am. And so it's interesting that I'm still having to reflect on like just being where I am and not fully surrendered yet, or I'm in the conscious state of it, but I'm definitely calling myself out on situations a lot around there. And I think the performance of our society, the obsession with performing of our society, you know, is really contributing to like our overall well-being. I think we are spending a lot of our time and our energy trying to put on a show, and you see it a lot with all the different social media apps, including TikTok now, where there's so many content creators on there who are just performing or acting out their lives, and inevitably like that situation leads you to live a life of performance. Like it's very hard, if not impossible, I would argue, to live a life that is grounded and real, no matter how authentic you come across in your content and in your life and in your choices and in your relationships as you project them or portray them. But the reality is, if you are creating content, you are in a performance state of being. And I think that performance state of being is something that I was really reflecting on this week a lot, of like, what is it about us that we've just gotten to this place where that's what we consider to be extremely valuable. And I think at the same time it's a really interesting corner because that we're turning, because a lot of people feel more lonely than they've ever felt before. We're seeing that like more and more acutely. And it's also just this projection of this, like, and that's concerning too, is the projection of the image that of the performance onto the consumer, that they need to meet those standards of living, when those standards of living, make no mistake, are a performance. The second that you turn the camera on and you show up and you create a scenario, like, you know, those situations that we're seeing on social media, especially, I will say again, TikTok, we're seeing a lot of these creators do like a day in the life. And if you've seen the BTS of what a day in the life content looks like, it's literally like tripod here, I would walk out here, sit down, do my card thing, then after I have to like bring my tripod out. Sorry, I would open the door, have the tripod, bring it out, set it up here, close the door, da-da-da. It's like stop, go, stop, go, stop, go, like action series, right? So, and then with clever editing, you're giving the feeling, and you're evoking the appeal that you've taken the viewer with you on a day or a moment in your day journey with you. And I think this is a very, honestly, I'm extremely at this point concerned about the need to be in all those places at once, and the need to perform for each other. The need to perform for each other is really alarming, and it doesn't allow for any vulnerability. And it's ironic, isn't it? Because, you know, you're like, oh guys, come, let's, like, I'll show you a day in my life and it'll be super raw, real footage. But something in our brains, just on both sides, just clicks when the content creator turns that camera on to film it. She knows she's being watched. And the consumer, the viewer, knows they're watching something, and they can't necessarily see it for exactly what it is, because it's performative. I think we need to have more filter, and I think the filter comes, the onus is on us, the individual, because I don't think in the scope of content creation that there's ever a way to create that is fully raw and honest. If a camera is on you, it is serving the ego. It's really interesting. It's really interesting. This is something that has really been in my forethought, like all week, is just like, who are we becoming? Like, when are we going, where is our obsession with performing going to take us? Oh, Seven of Voices is here. So, just pulling cards as we were talking, as you guys could see. And I think that makes a really interesting message for, I love that the Ten of Emotions is here, but it's reversed because this feels like it's a performance, but it's also a cycle coming to an end. So I think as a read on our society's obsession with performing, it's like this, the Knight of Inspiration is here. I have chills. And this is a really interesting card because in the context of this, because for me, the Knight of Inspiration is in pursuit of something that is pretty ego-based. So I think we see like the perseverance and the determination and the sheer endurance around the thing. And I think we see the Seven of Voices, and this is like a beautiful imagery with all the foxes that are around these two sort of like heads here. And it's just a question of, in the context of both the Ten of Emotions, which is the Ten of Cups, and the Eight of Inspiration, which is the Eight of Wands reversed, these two reversed, are really curious and peculiar in the middle, because who are we performing for and at what cost? It feels like our emotion, it feels like it's just a loop where even though we can come across as being extremely grateful and fulfilled and in trying to be as honest and authentic and just as humble as possible, we are in a state as a society, as a collective, with that, where we're just on loop. We're on loop and we're doing it for the noise that's around us, and it leaves us feeling extremely conflicted, and it doesn't leave us feeling fulfilled in a lot of ways. It just leaves us feeling like we've got to keep chasing that spark and keep going and going and going and going. And the loop is just is tired. The loop is like, you know, this typically would be great news, but that Eight of Inspiration in that context conjunct the Ten of Emotions here, like it feels like it's just this cycle of, who am I doing it for? Who am I doing it for? Like these two cards, like who am I doing it for? It's like we just keep going. We just keep going. Our stamina is non-negotiable, but the noise around us, it gives us this like almost this alter ego, like we're living two existences, two realities. The duality of the situation is really interesting. Let's see what we can pull here. There we go. There you go. First house came up there. So this is the house of self. And I think the first house shows us exactly that. It's the first house is Aries energy, naturally so. And I feel like at Aries energy, we're talking about something that is very in conjunction with this energy, and it's just like, just go for the sake of having the spark and having the validation that is external. Keep listening to the noise and keep trying to please the noise, but also living with your inner voices, which are just like, I'm tired and I cannot keep going. And then the seventh house here is reversed when I split the deck, and this is showing that our relationships are probably being sacrificed for that existence. So I think the cards are really telling us that it's not a situation that is dire necessarily, but I think it's questionable, like, why we perform and why we consume content that is performative, as it makes us feel like we need to be performing our own lives. We need to own more, we need to do more, we need to be more, we need to want more. And we're watching other people show that. And we are commenting and engaging with those lives and those content as if they have any knowing of what our lives are, what our realities are. And the juxtaposition it's making things really much more fluid and much more nuanced at the same time. Yeah, the page of materials is here, a rose card in the context of the Muse deck. And this feels like self-love. It feels like self-love. This feels like the answer is, roses have thorns. I think roses are just the desire to be loved. And I think that's where it falls, is, are we really helping each other, and are we really doing ourselves a favor or service by seeking out external validation and perpetuating the cycle of performance? So here we go. Justice card is up here. So in that context, I mean, how can we see things truly for what they are if we're equal parts engaging and supporting that content, as well as creating it? So I think we need to drop the performance. I think we really need to look at ourselves as performers in our lives, and where's the performance hindering you from your success, and where's the desire to live a performance hindering you from your success also, because that can be a really interesting thing for a content creator as well, like someone who just continuously puts themselves out there over and over and over again, and then is like, it's always the same story. Like, they're just lacking that fulfillment, and they feel like they've given it their all, and they're like, I know my life looks so rosy, but here's the truth. And it's like, oh God, like, is that really like bombshell news? Like, anyways, let me know what your thoughts are on performing. Do you feel like you're performing in your life? Do you feel like you're surrounded by people who are performing? Have you been in a situation where you were performing before? Like, I can definitely say that in the early days of life, when I was content creating, just kind of like, because it was like a passion of mine and I loved it, and I was working in fashion, like 100% I was performing a life. And even though you say you don't know it, you kind of do, because you're like, I'm just going to take this like kind of casual but very well thought out photo, and I'm just going to create this caption that tells a story that doesn't necessarily make me look bad, And even when we're performing vulnerable content, it's still a performance. So the veil of truth is really hard to access in the world of performing that we live in. So anyways, let me know your thoughts. I would love to know your feedback on this. Thank you so much for watching my YouTube. And if you haven't and you like this content, like, cool, I would love to meet you. So let's connect. You can follow me on Instagram. You can also follow me on TikTok, and of course subscribe to my YouTube channel, because this is really the space that I want to nurture. And of course my Patreon, which is also linked in my bio, so you can go subscribe there. My Patreon's a free community where I write letters about once a month. I write a letter. I have a background in writing, so I do pride myself on what I write, and I write honest stories about my life, in the hopes that you will feel seen in your life. But it brings up the question of performance, doesn't it? Anyways, that's on that. Have a good one, guys.